Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, all.
Hi, Paula. Hi, Todd.
Hi.
Hi.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry, it helps to turn on my, or unmute myself.
Oh, that's too easy. Boy, we're checking in a hurry. Heather's busy.
Yeah, sorry, I was on another call right up until this, so I'm here now.
I hope I didn't mess you up with the directory. By the way, I'm working on the directory, people, so you're going to get information from us because I want to update it with Club Runner. I'm trying to help Heather out so that I can get it off my paws, so my fingers aren't in the pie anymore.
Well, and you've done a great job so far because I haven't gotten a single, usually if something's not in sync, I'll get a ton of emails about it not being synced up. So I haven't received any. So it's
Good.
wonderful.
Weird is they had when they joined Rotary, and I kind of had it in the old database. So I put in the correct, what I felt was correct. But I don't know if you had updated stuff. And there's a few people like, I see Lauren's on. I might have trouble with his email. Mike Bjerknes is questionable too.
Oh,
This
sure.
way people can update. So Lauren,
Thanks for all you do, Paula.
I'm sorry.
you
Say it
for-
again.
Thank you for all the work that you do that goes unnoticed.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just trying to help Heather out.
And I think I got Mike Bjerknes's email address updated. And then I have another one that isn't updated yet, but it will be this afternoon.
Okay, I've put everything in, so if I'm wrong, let me know.
Okay, I'll just check it.
Because if our president and our secretary are happy with it, I'm going to send out an email with your attached directory page and when you guys are ready for it. And then you can look at it and we're going to update that directory because it's way out of date on a bunch of stuff. Unless Jennifer hasn't gotten married yet.
I think I'm married.
Yeah, I was kind of there, so I figured it. And it was just, we didn't realize we had 2 databases gone. So we're going to get that taken care of. So Ron, did you catch any fish last week? Ron Sanders?
No, I'm still, the spots that I always fish are above water right now. And I keep throwing baits up on the top of the mountain, but there don't seem to be any fish up there, but I can understand why they're there. No, I haven't done that. Trying to get some golf in, and actually I'm getting some electronics installed in my boat tomorrow, which will make it absolutely foolproof to be able to catch fish, because it's just, I just don't have the luck, right? I'm an old guy with the wrong electronics. So tomorrow we'll fix all that.
I'm going to warn you, Ron. I'm an underwater scuba diver. Last summer, or 2 years ago now, I helped a paraplegic underwater, or he was a pelagic. Anyway, he was trying to fish underwater, and I watched a fish eat my lure 3 times and spit it out. So it isn't as easy as you think, even if you have the electronics. It's kind of like fish, you got it in your mouth, swallow it. And finally, I just put the pole over my shoulder and continued to swim along. And that crazy fish, 5 minutes later, I turned around and I had a tug behind me. I turned around and I had a 2-pound bass on the back of my line. So go figure.
Yeah, no, it's, I've been doing it 50 years. Every day's a new day. Thanks for asking.
going to stall a little bit more, a little bit longer. It looks like we have about 32 participants. So may just wait as people come in.
Andy, are you going to talk about the Consumer Electronics Show?
A little different this year.
No kidding. Mark's been watching it. We're trying to get some information. We're checking out the cars today.
Yeah.
But kind of ironic, actually, you know, that this consumer electronics, you know, a lot of virtual things is virtual. So kind of interesting.
It's different, a lot different.
At least you don't have to walk 18 miles a day.
That's
to
right.
check it all out.
Exactly.
This is the first time Mark's been able to attend really. And so it was virtually because of some of the programs he's in internationally. They said, hey, go ahead and attend. So he's having fun with it.
Well, it looks like we're at 34. We have a really nice turnout today. So with that, I will go ahead and get Rotary started. If you would please join me in reciting the four-way test. Of the things we think, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendship? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you. And with that, our invocation is from Jesse Hopkins today. Jesse.
Thank you, Jennifer. Reflecting upon the month of January, the first month of our new year, named for the Roman god Janus, a god of new beginnings, associated with doors and gates, the first steps of a journey, the transition from past to present to future, often depicted with two faces, one looking forward and the other looking back. Lord, be with us at our club meeting today and throughout this new year. Even as you were subjected to all things, help us to bear wrongs patiently. Inspire in us hearts of conversion that we might shake off our old selves and put on a new self, created in your likeness. Remove our cold hearts of stone and put in us a heart of flesh, and renew in us a steadfast spirit that we might carry your loving mercy to the world. As Rotarians who even now are fighting disease, supporting education, providing health care to mothers and children, providing clean water, sanitation, and hygiene to communities in need, growing local economies and promoting peace. Remind us of the human values we share and help us to recognize the innate dignity and quality of each human being. In your infinite mercy, hear and answer us. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jesse. And introduction of guests. Our past district governor, Rick Becker. Do not see Rick. Don Peterson, our assistant district governor. Hi, Don. I do see Gloria Mink, our district executive secretary. And then we have district training committee, Jill Carlson. I do not see Jill. And our district crisis committee, Don Ryan. I do not see Don either. All right, introductions of guests. Christy, I think you have a guest with you.
I do. She just popped in getting done with distance learning and needs some lunch. So I told her to say hi here. She saw Mike and had to wave. So
Hi, Emily.
hi.
All right.
Future Rotarian.
Interact isn't that far away. Are there any other guests? Do we have any other guests with us today? Oh, there's Don Ryan. I introduced you, Don, and you weren't there. I see you're here now. Our district crisis.
Hello.
Hi, Don. Any other guests? All right, seeing none. Rotary related announcements. Does anybody have any Rotary related announcements?
David Winkleman here. I saw that the Crow Wing County Solid SWCD, the Soil and Water Conservation District, has put out their new order form for trees. And I wondered if John Forrest or Peter Nelson or somebody's going to be ordering trees for Rotary Park. Anybody know?
Great question. I do see John is with us.
I did not receive that order form. I have in the past been on their mailing list. Could you send that to me, Dave?
Sure, I just got it in the hard copy mail yesterday.
Okay, well, we haven't gotten our mail yet today, so maybe it's in today's mail. But
Okay.
I'll if it doesn't show up in the next couple of days, I'll give you a call and have you send a copy to me, or either that, or I'll get a hold of Growing with Soil and Water and have them send me a copy.
Sounds good, thanks.
Other Rotary related announcements. Well, I do have one. The Rotary Board will be meeting next Tuesday. I have a couple of things on our agenda. But one thing that I do want to talk to about the board, and as long as we have this fantastic showing for Rotary today, I see 41 people on our Rotary, in our Rotary meeting today. So I guess my question for the board next week is going to be about trying in-person meetings again. Now that bars and restaurants have been opened to a limited capacity. Our goal was to go to the woods. We went to Dennis Drummond Wine Company, and then we were going to go to the woods and try there. I guess I would just be interested in kind of seeing if anybody has any comments about that, as long as I have so many of you here.
According to external signs, the woods looks like it's a Chinese place or some other thing now. I'm not sure which.
Well, I know they have a banquet area, a separate building. I know Mike Bjerknes has been in contact with them, and we did receive an email from them. Mike, and I haven't responded, but maybe do you want to address that?
They are using that facility for like 3 days a week for an Italian bistro, part of their restaurant component, but they still have their banquet facility where they hold their weddings and all of that type of stuff that's available for a meeting room if someone is interested.
Okay.
I'd like it if we would support Dennis Drummond Winery.
They did a nice job on the last lunch we had there. I enjoyed that.
They've done a good job on everything.
Thanks, David. Any other comments, feedback?
Jennifer, would it be worth doing a doodle poll for the membership to get a count and do it that way, just as a thought?
That's a good idea, Todd. Thank you.
I like that idea because I am still uncomfortable being in person.
We'll do a doodle poll so that when the board discusses it next week, we'll have feedback from Rotarians. Thank you. Are there any other Rotary related announcements?
Jennifer, I actually put together a poll really quick if you wanted to do it right now, just asking if they're comfortable attending in-person meetings. It's anonymous.
Works for me.
You guys are quick.
Kudos to you.
We're at about 82% of people responding.
Thanks for doing that. Looks like we have about 62% who are comfortable and about 38% who are not. So thank you. And I think it was from all that practice we did a couple of weeks ago on these polls. So thanks, and I'm just going to make a note. All right, any other Rotary related announcements? Seeing and hearing none, we will move into our Sergeant at Arms. And we have Andy here today. Andy.
All right. Well, great. So just a couple of quick things. If any of you have happy dollars to get ready, I know that people are always have fun with that. So get yourselves ready on those. I have one. It just came out this morning that the CDC and the recommendations for those federal recommendations for anyone over the age of 65 to be able to immediately get the COVID vaccine. So if you fall into that category, I think that's probably a happy dollar at this point. So that's a good thing, and hopefully speeds things up quite a bit, and very exciting. And with that, when we have things that are different, there's opportunity that comes out of them. And I will say that ice skating wasn't something that my kids had an opportunity to do before this. Paula, I think every time you've walked by, you've seen these kids. My kids are out there for hours and hours a day now. Actually able to skate a little bit occasionally too, not just fall down and slide around, which is kind of fun. But we've had a lot of fun with it. They've been busy, and you can see a couple quick ones here of them and the dogs, and then all four of the kids skating. So that's been a really nice. Probably wouldn't have slowed down to take advantage of something like that in any other year with activities going on all the time. But that's been something we've really enjoyed, and the weather's been pretty darn nice too. So that's been a good thing. So I'll just stop with that and let anybody else jump in. If you have a picture, great. If you don't, that's fine too. And feel free to share.
I'll go, I guess. Carol Johnson. And I have a couple happy dollars. The first one is we'll be going to Tucson for a month as of the end of the week. So I'm kind of happy about that, but I'm also kind of sad because the weather's been so nice. I've been able to be out snowshoeing and cross-country skiing, and that's been awesome. But we'll be coming to you from Tucson probably next week.
I've got a happy dollar for weather too. It's the middle of January and we have forecasted, highs in the 20 and 30s, next 10 days. So you just can't beat this. It's been a great winter. Easy to enjoy.
This is Jennifer Bergman. I also have a happy dollar. I'm going to stick with that theme. I have been able to get out and do some cross-country skiing quite a bit. And the Arb is a beautiful place to go cross-country ski, and literally in our backyard. And I haven't got lost. I've heard a lot of people will get into the Arb and get lost as they're skiing through it. So anyway, if you get the opportunity, it's just a beautiful place.
Rod Rangan, I'll go next. I skied at the Rotary Park a couple days ago, and we could use some fresh snow, but it's still, like you say, the weather is so great. It's a nice place to do it. A lot of fun.
Anyone else?
I have a happy dollar. My nephew, and he's almost like a son. I don't want to get into details, but he was attacked last week with an axe, and has been in intensive care and has lived through it and is now in rehabilitation. So I got a couple of happy dollars for that.
Thanks, Ron. David, is that your screen?
Yes, I just wanted to give thanks for all the wonderful weather to be fishing outside. And of course, what that Microptus salamoides is a black bass. But how long is that, given that's a 10-inch hole? I figure about 16 inches. So that was a fun 4-pound test.
Great.
I have a happy dollar, if I may. I'm not sure how to screen share. I will try that, see if I can. Oh, it says you cannot start screen while others are participating and sharing. Okay. Anyhow, Adam Reese here. My daughter was home from boarding school in Fergus Falls, and she brought 3 international students, and the 3 international students joined us for a ski trip at Big Sky in Montana. I have some pictures I could share, but
Try it again, Adam. David was sharing at the moment, so you should be able to do it now.
all right, great.
There you go.
Okay, great. Yeah, so let me just pull this. Where is it here? So we did the big long course drive, if any of you have been there before. The girls are my daughters to the front right, but next to her is Lucy from Vietnam. Behind her is Lydia from South Korea, and then Wendy from China. And I'll just click through a couple of pictures here on the ski lift, but we were blessed with over a foot of fresh snow over the couple of days that we were there. So the skiing, which had been a little bit spotty, turned out to really be quite nice, and truly just a joy to be there, but also to be there with some new people. That was a lot of fun.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing those pictures. I was going to say one of the side benefits of this is having some of the folks who are usually gone from us this time of year and still able to join. You know, as we get more people that are south, I don't know, maybe to find the people that are south or those that aren't, but we'll figure that out at some point. But that is nice to have people that are joining us that normally we have an unfortunate break from over the winter months. Anyone else have anything to share?
I have a question. As a relatively new member, these happy dollars, where do we send them and how are they collected?
I think we have been keeping them ourselves until such a time as we could put them out there and drop them at some point. I do think that maybe Jim McReen, maybe I'll just touch base with you, and maybe there's an electronic way we can collect some of those from folks, just so we keep those rolling.
Yeah, so there's a couple ways to do this. One is mail a check or mail your money to our club address. And if you look at an invoice, you'll see what our club address is. So you can send the money there, and then Heather will pick it up and take care of it from there. You can, I set up PayPal, that if you want to use PayPal to pay your fine, you can do that. And when you do that, I'll let you know that I received it, and that'll work that way too.
To answer your question, Ron, the fines or contributions go to the president. There have been presidents who claimed it was going into a liquor fund. I don't know that happened. When I was president, I took the dollars and we put a bench down at the dog park. So I think every president gets to choose where those dollars go. I want to throw in a happy dollar. I see Ray Gildow is there, and we need to let the world know he won a major award yesterday. Maybe he can tell us about that.
Excuse me. The award was the Dwayne Lund Lifetime Achievement Award that I got from the Staples Motley Community Foundation last night. It's a very, very great honor. Excuse me.
Very nice. All right, unless anyone else has any others, thanks and have a great week.
Thanks, Andy. And in case you didn't notice, Heather did put in the chat the mailing address for Rotary. The other thing too is, if we do have an in-person meeting, it'd be an opportunity for you to, kind of an on your honor, have been collecting your happy dollars and bring them to an in-person Rotary meeting as well. All right, well, thank you, Andy, appreciate it. Next is our presentation. I did see him on here. Justin Thiesing is our presentation today, and he's going to talk to us about rice farming. Justin, I do see you there, but I just see your name and you are muted. So we look forward to hearing your presentation. And without further ado, I will just turn it over to you. Thanks for being here.
Better shape now. Can you hear me? Perfect. Like was said, my name is Justin Thiesing. I'm going to try to get the share screen figured out here. It's been a while since I've done a Zoom, so give me 1 second. I wish I could do the poll that was done earlier, because if I had to guess, not very many of you knew that there was a wild rice farm in Brainerd, Minnesota. So my family developed a wild rice farm a long time ago, starting in 1967 by my grandfather, Ray Pitts. The farm is located about 5 miles south of Business 371 on St. Matthias Road. His family farm, where he grew up as a child, 6.5 miles south of the fairgrounds on County Road 45. So where we grow the wild rice, about 5 miles south, you can see the little red dot on the map, kind of looks like a couple strangely shaped lakes. That's where the wild rice is grown. And the blue dot is where we package it and sell it off the farm. So like I said, it was built in 1967 and 68. It's actually in the lowest portion of Crow County. We use the Hay Creek to provide our water source. It's family built, owned, and operated. No outside interest whatsoever. It's all, my grandpa funded it back in the 60s. It's been operated and owned by him ever since, and I've just kind of grown into it and helped him out. So it's kind of an interesting process to build a rice farm. He was one of the first people in the state to do it. I think he was actually number 2. The first farm was built in Aiken County by a man of Cosbo is his last name. Very nice guy. He got my grandpa started in it. Fortunately, passed away a few years ago, but I did get to meet him. He was a really cool guy. So what it looked like before he started was just a swamp. He went in there with bulldozers and heavy equipment, bulldozed the brush out of the way. They went in and burned off all the surrounding shrubbery, cleaned everything up, and then in the spring they were able to cultivate the fields. So funny story about cultivating swamps. Most people would probably use a moldboard plow, like the old sod busters back in the day when they came across the prairie. They use what's called a moldboard plow. It's I don't know if any of you are familiar with farming or not, but it's basically a big kind of triangle shaped piece of iron that goes in the ground and turns the soil over. Well, if you do that in a swamp and then you flood it, it's prone to creating carbon dioxide and methane from the breakdown, and your soil will float away. So you can't use a moldboard plow in a swamp. It's a little interesting tidbit, but process, it's an interesting process. So most places do their seeding in the spring. We do it a little differently. We do our seeding in the fall when the ground is frozen or near frozen, it's dry enough to farm. We flood the fields in the spring. Germination of the seed occurs somewhere around April, pretty water temperature dependent actually, and the fields remain flooded until the end of July, beginning of August. We harvest anywhere from August to September, and tillage seasons from September to November, and once again we're seeding in November. All right. How do we flood it? So that's kind of interesting. Lake wild rice is obviously naturally grown. There's no outside interventions as to the process of how it's grown. It's just natural. It seeds itself. The water temperature has got to be right, and the water depth has got to be right, or you won't get a good crop, which is a lot of times why wild rice or lake rice is very inconsistent. So we're able to control the water level and not so much the water temperature, but how much water is in there at a given time. So we're able to sort of regulate the temperature a little bit. More water will cool it down, less water will heat it up, sort of thing. You can use the sun to your advantage. It's pretty important to have the right amount of water. So each field has, we call them controls. They're it's basically a dam. There's 4 dams on each field, 1 on each corner. We can control the water going in and the water going out to get the right height of water. It's very important that you don't have any more than 14 inches of water, or the stocks will become weak, integrity fails, and they're more prone to lodging and falling over. This is a picture early spring, right after the snow melt and the beginning of flooding. So you can see there's hardly anything green. Cattails are all dead. They're still yet to come back from the winter. The dikes or our roadways are green. They're starting to green up. So this is what it looks like in the spring. It's a beautiful area to go to visit. I mean, waterfowl love it. The deer love it in the fall. Birds, everything you can think of is there. It's really a beautiful area. Muskrats, beaver, all sorts of water animals. It's really cool. And this is a little bit later in the spring. So you can see the green things floating in the water. That's actually rice. It's beginning its process of growing. So right now it's probably, that water is likely 10 inches deep or so. And the rice is maybe 12 to 14 inches tall. So this is probably a early June to late May picture, somewhere in there. There's a little better, more detailed picture of it. This is actually not a picture of our farm. This is a farm in Aiken County. It's a good friend of ours by the name of Nathan Coswell. He's doing what's called basically what he's doing is he's running knives. He's got an airboat, has knives on the back. He's thinning the rice out. So rice seeds itself after the first year you plant it, but it seeds itself too thick. And if it's too thick, you're going to have weak stands. Your integrity of your stocks is going to be poor. You have a lot of shatter. You're going to have a lot of lodging. So we have to go in there and thin it. Well, we mount a knife attachment to the back of an airboat. We're able to go across it and thin it down. It's kind of a fun process because airboats are kind of fun. But I'm realizing when I put this slideshow together that I have horrible picture taking abilities and I never take any. I need to start taking more. It's embarrassing. So the summer is our growing season, just like most crops that you'd be around here familiar with. Hot, humid days are really good, and cool, lesser humidity at night is desirable. So really hot, humid night is pretty detrimental to rice, and it's very intolerant to humid nights. So the cool dryness of the night is good. It allows the rice to recuperate kind of from the hot, humid day. We keep the water around 6 to 12 inches. The stalks grow from, the summer season, like the beginning of June or middle of June, they're about 20 inches tall. And by the end of July, they're around 6 feet, sometimes even taller. At the base, they're about a ½ inch in diameter, and they're hollow tubes. The seeds are clustered within the top foot of the plant. Mid-July, we start to slowly let the water out and drain the fields. Why do we drain the fields? We have to harvest it somehow. We certainly don't want to go in there with a canoe because that's a lot of work and it would take forever. So here's a picture. This is about a mid-July picture. You can see the rice is kind of a hard picture to see, but the purple tops of the rice, that's your sex organs for the rice plant. And the dark green, I think you got a better picture. The dark green stems right at the top. That's where the seeds are all clustered. This is probably a better picture yet. If you look real closely, you can see the seeds clustered kind of in the center here. Pretty decent picture of what it looks like early in the harvest season. So, how do we harvest it? You'd think it'd be kind of difficult considering most of the time the fields are underwater. But with our controls, we're able to drain the water and dry the fields. So we were able to get in there with, conventional farming equipment. We go in there with a regular combine. However, our combines are a little bit different. We have tracks on the front and heavy flotation tires on the back. So we're able to float right across the mud for the most part. That doesn't mean it's always trouble-free. We get stuck all the time. Average yield's about 1,600 pounds per acre. A bumper crop would be right around 2,000. One thing that's interesting about wild rice in comparison to, conventional crops like oats, corn, soybeans, barley, is the moisture content when it's harvested. So, for example, high moisture corn is harvested from 16 to 18% moisture. Wild rice is harvested around 40%. That's really moist. So it's very prone to, basically it's prone to mold. It's prone to rotting if it's not taken care of properly. When we harvest it, it's bright green in color, soft, valuable, very chewy. Interesting fact, Minnesota produces around 8 to 10 million pounds of wild rice annually, mostly from their cultivated farms. Play a little video here. This is actually my grandpa. He's 78 years old now. He's combining, this was last summer, combining wild rice on our farm here in South Brainerd. It's only about a 20-second video, but you can kind of get the picture. So. You can see the green rice coming into the hopper right now. This wasn't a very good stand of rice, so the amount coming in the hopper is pretty low. But if you look on the right, this is actually me. I was operating the combine that day, emptying into the truck to haul to the processing plant. So it's bright and green, it's soft and chewy, and it's very interesting. It's just an interesting crop to harvest, especially compared to oats or barley or another small grain that you'd be used to. Like I said, that doesn't mean just because we can use conventional equipment doesn't mean it always works. This year was a very wet year. This was, I think, 2017 or 2016. We broke the drive shaft in the middle of the wettest paddy that we've ever had. And we had no way to get out there. We were about 1/8 of a mile from the nearest dry land. And we were able to get an Argo with 8 wheels and tracks and loaded up a welder on it. And we were able to drive out there and get out to the combine to fix the drive shaft and get it out. You can just see how much mud and how much of a mess it was to work in. We had plywood laid down. We're standing on plywood, laying on plywood, trying to work in there. It was an absolute disaster. Unfortunately, we were using this old beat up combine because our normal usage combine was out of commission. We had broke, the motor went out on that. So we were having a bad year to begin with. And then we end up breaking down in the middle of the field. But that's part of the challenge, and sometimes it's part of the fun. I mean, it's a pretty good learning experience when you're stuck out in the middle of the field and you got to be ingenuitive and figure out a way to get your equipment fixed and think out of the box. So in the fall, we till the fields. Like I said before, we're not going to use a moldboard plow. We'll rototill it or we'll disc it. And then we use a broadcast spreader to seed. So we go out there, it's just about frozen. It's really getting, the fields are really dry. So we're able to drive on it with normal equipment. We'll broadcast seed it, then we'll go over top of it with a disc to put the seeds in the ground. Why do we plant in the fall and not the spring? Well, one reason is seed storage is really difficult. So we actually plant green seeds, and to store the seeds, we put them in a 2,000-pound tote and we throw them in the river, and they're tied to a rope. They sink down to the bottom. They stay in water the entire time. If you did that with most seeds, they would actually sprout, they would germinate, but wild rice doesn't do that. So it just stays moist. It's able to maintain its integrity, and it's able to have a good germination rate. Like I said, it reseeds itself typically. So replanting is necessary every 4 to 6 years, depending on your stand. Usually those first 2, 3, and 4 years, sometimes the 4th year, but for sure the 2nd and 3rd years, you're after going to go out there and use the airboat and thin it. Otherwise, you'll have too thick of a stand. So this is just generalized equipment that you'd use on any farm. Fun story about this tractor. Pretty hard to see, and I didn't have any better pictures, but it actually has 12 tires on it, 6 on the back, 6 on the front. So we have a lot of flotation. We can go across quite a bit of water with it. This is a picture of a tractor in Aiken County on the Nathan Cosgrove farm again. And he's doing something that we do quite often. It's called land planing. So what we try to do is we level off the fields as best as possible to allow water to drain off in a more equal and distributive way. That way we don't end up with deep holes where they get puddles and places where we're going to get stuck. Doesn't mean it's perfect, because we certainly get stuck. There's no question about that. Processing. So like I said, we harvest it when it's green, it's soft, it's chewy, it's a high moisture. We take our wild rice to a processing plant in Deerwood, just a little bit south of 210 as Deerwood goes just past the Deerwood shortcut, basically. And it's called what they do is a parching process. California uses a parboiling process, which is why their rice looks and tastes a little bit different. So the 2 states that grow a lot of wild rice are Minnesota, California. California wild rice has a different taste, has a different smell, and a different look. Parching sequence is a 6-step sequence. First step is curing. So it actually sits outside in great big piles, and it heats up. It gets really quite hot, and that's part of the curing process. They allow it to heat to a certain temperature. It sits out on asphalt, heats to a certain temperature for X amount of days, and then they bring it inside. They roast it. They have great big tumble dryers with flames in them. They roast it in those. It dries it, builds a flavor profile, and then they hull it. So they take off the outer shell. Scarifying is an interesting process. What it does is creates a bunch of scratches in the outside of the rice, which allows it to absorb more water and cook faster. After the scarifying process is done, they clean it and they sort it into numerous different grades. So there's a couple different grades. Grade A, that's your like premium rice. That's the stuff you'd want to make a pilaf out of and just, you know, eat straight out of the bowl. B grade is a little bit of smaller seeds. It's good for eating. It has a little different flavor and a little different texture. It goes really well in soups. Or broken, which is kind of the C grade, lowest grade. That's really your soup grade of rice. What we do then is we pick up the wild rice in 2,000-pound totes, bring it back to our packaging facility on County Road 45, and we hand package it into packages, typically 1-pound packages. Most of that's done by my grandpa now, but this is a picture of the finished product. So you can see this is an unsorted or non-grade product. If you look closely, you can see a couple of the broken hull, a couple broken, some really good looking grade A stuff. This is pre-processed or pre-graded and sorted. Nutritional value is kind of interesting. It's quite a bit more nutritious than white or brown rice. I'll get into why that is later. Higher in protein, so we have what do we got? 7 grams of protein in 1 cup of cooked wild rice versus 4.3 grams or 5 grams in white and brown, respectively. Less calories, so if you're on a low caloric diet, it's a pretty good option for you. It's also high dietary fiber, which is good for caloric diets as well. It's a pretty good source of vitamin B6 and magnesium, and it's low in fat. Potassium as well, I forgot about that. Very high in potassium, which is good. So a couple little fun facts about it. It's actually a whole grain. Most people don't know that. Surprisingly enough, it's also gluten-free. Most of your cereal grains, oats and barley, wheat as well, are not gluten-free. It's a Minnesota state grain. It's commercially grown and produced in 2 states, Minnesota and California. California got into the market in the mid-70s. Minnesota was first in the commercial market. And our farm is actually the southernmost wild rice farm in the state, the next closest, the next southernmost being in Aiken County. And for the shocker, wild rice is not actually a rice, it's a grass. Why it was ever thought to be a rice in the first place is it's beyond me. I'd have to read it up on the University of Minnesota's webpage because they're very keen on the investigation and the diagnostics of it, but it's not a rice, it's a grass. So you have white rice and brown rice. Those are both rices. Wild rice is technically considered a grass. A little bit of contact information. The processing plant, a place you can purchase the wild rice, is at 6545 County Road 45. If you call this 829 number, that'll get a hold of my grandfather. We can also sell it online at his website. Don't take the prices too certain on that page though, because I have to get that addressed. I was looking on it last night and I realized that the prices are not correct on the website. If you also want some more info about wild rice, go to minnesotawildrice.org. They have a Minnesota Wild Rice Council. We're members of it. They have a lot of recipes, information about wild rice, the processing and packaging and all sorts of good stuff. Just pretty good resource for you. My contact info is down here as well. So cool story. I mean, most of our wild rice is sold locally, either right off the farm. My grandpa sells a lot of it off the farm. We also sell the Cub Foods, Super One. You'll find it on their shelves. Schaefer's in Nisswa. Henry's Foods is a major food distributor for most of the local restaurants. They are a huge buyer, and a lot of the restaurant soups that you'd go to get or wild rice dishes use our wild rice. So they supply like Craigan's, or not Craigan's, Curry Bay, excuse me. A lot of the other higher end restaurants in the area are all supplied by Henry's, which would in turn be my grandpa's rice. So that's all I have. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
If it's not rice, why do you call it rice instead of grass?
I wish I had an answer for you. That was established long before I was in existence, so I can't give you that answer. I apologize.
Have you,
Justin,
have you experienced any effect of global warming on your business?
My grandpa actually stated that he did. I would have to investigate with him a little bit more on that. But he's noticed that the summers have been warmer and the growing seasons have actually been shorter. Used to be you'd harvest in September, and now we're harvesting in August. And I remember as a child that we were harvesting during Fair Week. I always wanted to be out at the Crow Wing County Fair, the end of July, beginning of August, and I was stuck out in the combine instead. So it's definitely changed since even I was a kid. Our growing seasons have been different. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with the different rice varieties that are available now. University of Minnesota does a really stellar job of coming up with different rice varieties that have shorter growing lengths, better traits and capabilities, less shattering, larger grains, more steady, tall integrity stocks. So, but I do believe that there is a difference in global warming, especially in the water availability in the spring.
How are you able to compete with California?
Well, see, that was actually a really big problem in the 70s. We're not. The only thing that we have going for us is Minnesota wild rice tastes a lot better, in my opinion. I probably have a biased opinion, but I don't know. The easiest way to describe California rice in my mind is it tastes like it smells. Minnesota wild rice does not quite taste like that. So a lot of California's wild rice is contracted to Uncle Ben's. So it comes in like the prepackaged, be like a mixed with white rice and brown rice and vegetables and seasonings and stuff. So a lot of their rice goes into that, where a lot of our rice is sold as whole wild rice.
Justin, I have a question, and I just want to let you know that I'm definitely an advocate of your product.
Yes, you are. Thank you.
I am, yes. Now I've got a couple bags, and I was told actually by Arnie Jensen, my cousin, that we should store them in the freezer until we use them. Should I be storing them in the freezer or just put them in the cupboard?
No, I'll just put them in the cupboard.
Okay.
I don't know where he got that information.
I don't remember
half
if
the
it was...
stuff he says. So he's my uncle. So
yeah. All right. Thanks.
Yep. You got the poll up. Thank you very much. That's awesome. I also forgot to mention
too, but I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh yeah. I also forgot to mention that we are pesticide and herbicide free. So we use no pesticides or herbicides. We do use some nitrogen, some urea nitrogen in the fall to help fertilize the crop, but that's about it. Most of the farms in the state are not like that. We're about the only one that's pesticide and herbicide free. And our nitrogen comes from an organic source of potash. So
I'm curious.
What you lose to ducks every year?
Oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe it. A lot. Ducks, swans, geese are in there all the time. Trying to think of what else. There's the sandhill cranes are in there. Oh my goodness. The ducks are terrible. They just go in there and they pull the stocks right out of the ground, pluck them out one after another. Oh, wow. Cool.
I'm curious about the flavor of the rices. If you get a true native, they can even tell you which lake the rice was harvested on. What affects the flavor of a rice?
The acidity of the water has a lot to do with it, the phosphorus content, as well as the magnesium content. So the pH is probably, I think, one of the biggest things of the watershed that it's in, and then the magnesium and the phosphate levels in the lake around it.
So
that's what I've read. So I've never done a taste test and tried to determine what is from where. And the processing is a little different too. The scarifying length, how long the rice is scarified, also changes the flavor profile.
I'm also like Carol. I make it a habit to purchase your rice because it definitely has a different flavor than a lot of other rices. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Do you fertilize? Do you fertilize your crop?
Just with potash. Yep. Just for nitrogen. The only thing we're after is the nitrogen. So we get pretty good volume of nitrogen out of the potash. So.
We've always bought at Cub and we give it as gifts. We send to our friends. We've got friends in Hawaii. They love getting it too. So that's always fun. You must be related to our Kevin Thiesing. You got to explain that. That's the one question everybody wants to know.
Oh yeah, we're very distantly related actually. So I don't know how the chain would work out, but we're cousins, distant down the line. I think my great grandfather and his grandfather were brothers or first cousins, so it's quite a ways down the line.
Are you related to Steve Thiesing?
Oh boy, the name doesn't ring a bell, but I'm sure I am. There's way too many of us to keep track of. I have such a hard time.
Any other questions of Justin? Well, thank you. This was interesting. I was one of the people in the poll who did not know there. So thank you. This was really enlightening. And I am a lover of wild rice. So thank you so much.
It's unfortunate that we weren't able to have a live meeting because I was going to bring samples. So it's a bummer. I know. And if anybody would like to take a tour or, meet us out at the farm someday to see how things work, feel free to get a hold of us. I think my phone number is in there, or my email is. You can sure send me an email and we can arrange something. So I thank you all for having me. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Thank you, Justin. Appreciate it. Is there anything else to come before Rotary? All right, seeing next week is a club meeting, so look forward to seeing you there. Have a great rest of your week.